Hi, welcome to this channel GCP Exam Ready. In today's video, we're going to go through Cloud Functions. So, we've discussed what Cloud Functions is before, and we mentioned that we use Cloud Functions to respond to events. I've added a little line here just to remind you that any Cloud Function will time out after 1 minute. If this doesn't sound familiar to you, make sure you check out the previous videos on Cloud Functions to be aware of information that is necessary when you're using Cloud Functions on GCP. The important keywords are events, triggers, and functions. We'll go through each one of these in depth. What is an event? An event can be thought of as an action which sets off the Cloud Function code to execute. It's the reason we're running the Cloud Function response to begin with. Something has happened to trigger it, and therefore a code or something was run to respond to that. We've got different categories when we're talking about events. There are 5 categories. Let's have a look at them individually. We've got cloud storage. This means you either uploaded, deleted, or archived a file. You've got cloud pub/sub, which means that a message was published or you needed to respond to a message on pub/sub services. There's a HTTP request, which uses post, get, put, delete, and options. This is important. It comes up quite frequently in GCP exams. You also have Firebase triggers and Stackdriver login, which results in pub/sub message. What's a trigger? Remember, an event is something that happens to cause a trigger. A trigger is a way to respond, so the Cloud Function will specify how to respond to an event before you run the actual function. Which brings us to what's a function? A function is what actually happens in response to the event. This can be a piece of code, it can be pushing files into cloud storage, it can be reading from a file, it can be translating a file. It depends on your use case. So let's go over it in detail. What happens when a function is triggered? Well, you've got an event, which is something happens. A trigger, the system recognizes how to respond to that event. And then the function, which is something happens in response to the event. Each time a function is triggered, you get a separate instance. These instances can't share information between each other because they're isolated. So it's important to know that you have to have a way of retrieving any information before the instance is shut down. So if you need to keep track of the state of the instance, or if you have a global count going on and you need to keep track of that, you need to return that information to a database. You might return the state, or you might return important information like a count, and that will all be stored in the database that you specify. This is if there is a need for it. Let's have a look at an example of a Cloud Function use. This is the most common example, and it's usually an exam question. Cloud Functions and Cloud Storage. Let's say you're uploading a file to cloud storage, and the way you've set up your GCP account says that once you upload a file to cloud storage, a function is triggered. This means that the event was you uploading the file. The function is triggered and you invoke a function. The function itself, which you have declared, says to scan the file, save it, or maybe even translate it. This means that all of this will be done in response to the event. And all of this can be specified in your Cloud Function when you're setting it up. This has been GCP Exam Ready, going through Cloud Functions. Make sure you check out my previous videos if some of this didn't sound familiar to you. And I hope you get a lot of the content so far. If you don't,